Good day everyone, my name is David Flynn and today I'd like to introduce DocuCraft, professional technical documentation service designed to transform complex software systems into clear, structured and user-friendly documentation. Many organizations invest significant resources into building excellent software, but they often overlook documentation until the very end of the project. Unfortunately, even outstanding software can struggle if users do not understand how to use it effectively. Reference: Johnson Sheehan, 2017. At DocuCraft, our philosophy is simple: crafting clarity, delivering confidence. Our goal is not merely to produce documents, we create documentations that help businesses reduce support costs, improve customer satisfaction, preserve organizational knowledge, and ensure long-term business continuity. During this presentation, I'll explain why documentation is a strategic business investment rather than just another project deliverable. When people think about software failure, they often assume the software itself is defective. However, many software products fail despite being technically excellent. One of the biggest reasons is poor documentation. If users cannot understand how to operate a system, they get frustrated. This frustration creates several business problems. Support teams receive more calls, training costs increase, user adoption declines, customers lose confidence in the product, and forget cross-selling and upselling. Eventually, companies begin losing revenue not because their software lacks features, functionality, and world-class quality, but because customers struggle to use it effectively. Good documentation removes these barriers by guiding users confidently through the product, improving the overall customer experience, leading to both customer delight and end-user delight. Reference: Johnson Sheehan, 2017. Poor documentation affects almost every department within an organization. First, support teams become overloaded, answering repetitive questions that could have been addressed through clear user guides. Second, new employees require significantly more time to become productive because they lack reliable reference material. Third, organizations face knowledge loss whenever experienced employees leave. This is person dependency. If important procedures exist only in someone's memory, the business becomes dependent on individuals rather than documented processes. Finally, unclear documentation often results in misunderstood requirements, project delays, expensive rework, and missed deadlines. These hidden costs accumulate over time and can far exceed the initial investment required to create professional documentation. This is why documentation should be viewed as an investment rather than an expense. This perspective is supported by the IEEE Computer Society 2021, which identifies documentation as an essential contributor to software quality, maintainability, and long-term project success. DocuCraft addresses these challenges through a comprehensive documentation strategy. We begin by creating accurate software specifications, ensuring that business needs are clearly documented and before development progresses. In more detail, let me clarify that business requirements are kept in the business requirement documents. The prototype documents contain each functional requirement. Those functional requirements are described in detail in the SRS in the functional requirement sections, and those functional requirements have a correlation with the technical specifications in the technical specifications document. And based on these three requirements, the functional requirement, the prototype, and the technical specifications, test cases are written which allow the quality personnel to verify and validate each functional requirement. The many-to-many correlation in each of these requirements is called requirements traceability. Mapping all of these requirements in a simple Excel file and then validating that each requirement has been met ensures that each client requirement has been implemented, tested, and delivered. Next, we develop the user manuals and administration guides. Following deliverables would be the internationally accepted documentation standards. These practices are consistent with the recommendations of ISO IEC IEEE 26514/2022, which defines requirements for designing and developing effective user documentation. However, our work goes beyond creating individual documents. We introduce what I call the Documentation Continuity Framework, which establishes consistent documentation practices throughout the entire organization. This framework ensures that documentation remains organized, standardized, and easy to maintain even years after the original project has been completed. The ultimate outcome is improved clarity, faster onboarding, lower support costs, and stronger business continuity. This slide illustrates how documentation contributes to the complete business lifecycle. Documentation isn't something that only happens after software development finishes. Instead, documentation supports every phase of a project. We begin by understanding the requirements, which are the raison d'etre of those client requirements, and only understanding them in detail ensures that we deliver what the client actually asked for, and then it helps us to add value to each deliverable that we provide to them. These requirements become structured documentation. Documentation follows established standards to maintain consistency. As systems evolve, documentation is updated through controlled maintenance processes, and we call this configuration management. This continuous cycle ensures that organizational knowledge is preserved rather than lost. Ultimately, documentation becomes a strategic business asset that supports long-term growth, quality assurance, compliance, and operational continuity. Reference IEEE Computer Society 2021. Here we compare organizations with and without professional documentation. Without structured documentation, companies often experience higher support costs, slow employee onboarding, inconsistent documentation practices, project delays, and increased training expenses. By contrast, organizations using DocuCraft benefit from reduced support requests because users can find answers independently even at the middle of the night. New employees become productive much faster, documentation remains consistent across departments. Knowledge, knowledge is retained even when staff members change. Projects are completed more efficiently because everyone works from the same accurate information. In simple terms, effective documentation improves both operational efficiency and customer satisfaction. This aligns with the IEEE Computer Society 2021, which recognizes high-quality documentation as a key factor in software engineering best practices. One of DocuCraft's strengths is its structured documentation lifecycle. Every project begins with discovery, where we understand business objectives and stakeholder expectations. Next comes the requirement analysis and research to ensure technical accuracy. After planning, we begin writing documentation tailored to its intended audience. Each document then undergoes multiple stages of review and quality assurance to ensure clarity, consistency, and completeness. Only after client approval do we proceed with final delivery. Importantly, our relationship doesn't necessarily end there. We also provide ongoing maintenance services so documentation remains accurate as the software evolves. This disciplined workflow ensures consistency, high-quality deliverables. Reference Johnson, Sheehan, 2017. This framework represents one of the unique value propositions of DocuCraft. Many documentation providers focus only on creating manuals. Our approach is broader. We begin with software requirement specifications that establish a clear project foundation. Next, we create user manuals, administration guides, training documents designed specifically for their intended audiences. We also develop documentation style guides that define formatting, terminology, writing standards, branding, document consistency, and the metrics to measure readability as well as the education level for each document. And those would namely be the flesh reading ease and the flesh kinsale level of education that is required to comprehend the content in each of the documents. Finally, we prepare maintenance guides that allow future teams to update documentation independently. This is where we remove person dependency completely. This significantly reduces dependence on individual employees. As a result, organizations gain a sustainable documentation ecosystem rather than isolated documents. ISO IEC IEEE 26514 2022 similarly emphasizes creating documentation that remains consistent, maintainable, and useful throughout the software lifecycle. Clients choose DocuCraft because we combine technical expertise with professional communication. We prioritize prompt responses and transparent communication throughout every project, ensuring that our clients are pre-informed. So we basically set expectations and deliver as per those expectations or above and beyond. We deliver documentation that aligns with internationally recognized documentation standards. Every document is written with the end user in mind, ensuring clarity, usability, and accessibility. Perhaps most importantly, we help organizations preserve valuable institutional knowledge so that documentation continues delivering value long after the project has completed. Our objective is to become a trusted documentation partner to you rather than simply a document provider. Reference Johnson Sheehan 2017. To conclude, I'd like to leave you with one key message. Documentation should never be considered an afterthought. It is an essential component of software quality, customer satisfaction, operational efficiency, and long-term business success. DocuCraft exists to help organizations create documentation that not only explains software, but also supports business continuity, reduces costs, and improves the overall customer experience. The final goal being customer delight as well as end user delight. Whether the need is an SRS, user manuals, administration guides, training guides, documentation standards, or long-term maintenance support, our mission remains the same: crafting clarity, delivering confidence. Thank you very much for your time, consideration, and attention. References taken from IEEE Computer Society 2021, ISO IEEE 26514 2022. As highlighted by Johnson Sheehan 2017, the IEEE Computer Society 2021, and ISO IEC IEEE 26514 2022, effective documentation is a strategic investment that strengthens software quality, enhances the user experience, and supports long-term organizational success. I am more than happy to answer any of your questions. And this slide contains all the references that have been cited throughout the body content of this presentation. Thank you once again. Have a great day.